What's going on, everyone? It's another edition of the Bleav in Steelers show. My name is Mark Bergin. Ahead on today's episode, I'll talk about expectations for Will Howard in year one as a rookie. But before we get to that, we find out today that we're still waiting on Aaron Rodgers to make up his mind. And in the time being, there have been some rumblings and rumors out there of whether the Steelers could trade for Titans quarterback Will Levis. Now, the Titans drafted Cam Ward with the first overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft. He looks to start immediately in Tennessee. It didn't work this past year with Will Levis. Mason Rudolph started 5 games, went 1-4 for the Titans this past season. And so they get Ward as their quarterback of the future. But that means Will Levis is out on the trading block and whether it makes sense for the Steelers to trade for him. So the Titans have a backup that could be on the move. And remember, Cleveland's got a glut of quarterbacks in Deshaun Watson, Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel, and Shedeur Sanders. I don't think a trade for Will Levis will help Pittsburgh specifically. I think Levis will need to relaunch his career in another city like we've seen Baker Mayfield do. We've seen Sam Darnold do. I don't think Pittsburgh helps him solve that problem, though. And the reason I say this is if I'm Pittsburgh, I wouldn't give up a 5th, 6th, or 7th round pick for Levis because his decision-making ability. I'll go back to week 1 of the 2024 season. Titans are leading the Bears, and Levis throws a pick 6 to Tyreek Stevenson. Is one of the worst decisions I've seen a quarterback make. And if it didn't work in 2+ seasons in Tennessee with different coaches, I don't see that getting fixed in Pittsburgh. To me, the best case scenario in resurrecting Will Levis's career would be a lot like how Ryan Tannehill resurrected his career in Tennessee. Now, what exactly did the Titans accomplish, though, in Tannehill's best years? Tannehill went 11-5 in 2020. They went 12-5 in 2021. In 2019, it was a Titans team that got hot the right time of the year. They went 9-7, but they made it to the AFC Championship game before losing to the Chiefs. Tannehill won Comeback Player of the Year that year. And then the Titans lost in the wild card round to the Ravens. And then they lost in the divisional round the following season in 2021 to a Joe Burrow-led Bengals team. And a Joe Burrow Bengals team that they sacked like 9 times in that game. Sounds a lot like a Steelers defense that can be dominant at times. So even if Will Levis was able to do that, to follow the mold of what happened with Ryan Tannehill in Miami and then going to Tennessee, the question I have for Steelers fans, if you're interested in Will Levis, is what does that get you? What does that actually accomplish? I don't see Will Levis in Pittsburgh being a good, solid marriage. Just because I know his value is extremely low, but I don't think it helps bring about any further playoff success. So we'll see, and it really ultimately depends. All of this is incumbent on when Aaron Rodgers makes a decision. As you get into the offseason and offseason workouts, and you get closer and closer to training camp. Now, we've got the schedule release a week from now. Next week, that will be. So you'll get a better idea of, okay, we know the opponents that the Steelers will play, but we'll have on the calendar when the Steelers will play each opponent and whether or not Aaron Rodgers is going to be on this roster, because as it stands right now, I expect Mason Rudolph to be the team's starting quarterback. Now, I want to address what the expectations are for Will Howard in year one. The comparisons to Ben Roethlisberger need to stop. Point blank, straight up. And I understand that Will Howard is 6'4". He's got good size. I understand you're excited of some of the things he did at Ohio State and Kansas State. And he's got some mobility, and there's some comparisons to Josh Allen. If Will Howard plays any meaningful snaps in the 2025 season, it will mean one of two things. Either you had injuries at the quarterback position, or your season went south and you want to see what Will Howard could do from an ability standpoint, in which case Mike Tomlin would be looking at his first sub 500 season. That's the only way I think Will Howard plays meaningful snaps in the 2025 season. And I know that we want to see what he can do. I think that's what the preseason for. I think that's what training camp is for. What's the best case scenario for Will Howard? It would be Tom Brady. Tom Brady threw 3 passes as a rookie, played in 1 game. Tom Brady didn't start a game until week 3 of his second season in the NFL. Look at Brock Purdy, another example of a late quarterback who has had some on-field success. Brock Purdy didn't start a game in his rookie year in 2022 until week 13. It was December the 4th, 2022. And oh, by the way, the 49ers had stud players in Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Kyle Juszczyk. He had a lot of help around him. He just needed to steer the ship. We need to better establish what the expectations are going to be for Will Howard in year 1. And that is, I really don't have any. I really don't have any expectations for him because, again, if he plays any meaningful regular season snaps, to me, that just goes to show you that, again, there were injuries at the quarterback position to Mason Rudolph, Skylar Thompson, Aaron Rodgers, whoever else the Steelers bring in at the quarterback position. Or it's, hey, the season's already lost. Let's see what the kid can do, and let's put him in there late in the year. And again, the 2 examples I would give you, Tom Brady, late pick, Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, when they started games and how they established themselves in the league and establishing what expectations should be if you're a fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm excited to see what he can do as well, but I'm also realistic in that Will Howard, there's a reason he was a 6th-round pick. And maybe he can outperform that. But to me, this leads to what the Steelers are actually planning, and that is stockpiling their draft capital. A couple things happen a year from now. 1, the city of Pittsburgh hosts the draft. 2, you have a lot of supplementary picks from players that you lost this past offseason in Najee Harris and Dan Moore Jr. You can either use those picks to draft another quarterback, or you could use those picks to trade up in the draft to go get the guy that you could potentially want in the 2025 draft, which, by the way, is also more talent rich. It's a deeper quarterback class than we saw in the 2025 class. Speaking of the draft, Pittsburgh's going to host it in 2026. We find out in 2027, Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, will host the draft. So it's going to be Pittsburgh and then D.C. A couple other news and nuggets to get to. We're talking about rookie quarterbacks. Will Howard will wear number 18. Caleb Johnson will wear number 20. Jack Sawyer, number 33. Dante Kent, number 34. Carson Bruner, number 44. Y.A. Black, number 78. And Derek Harmon, number 99. Those are the rookie numbers for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I've got one other nugget for the listeners and the viewers of the Bleav in Steelers show. Now that Greg Popovich in the NBA is no longer the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs, he's going to be moving into the organization's front office for health reasons. Mike Tomlin is now the longest tenured head coach in North American sports. Tomlin entering his 19th season as head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 2025 season. So almost 2 decades now for Mike Tomlin. And again, now that Greg Popovich is no longer going to be the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs, Mike Tomlin becomes the longest tenured head coach, active head coach in North American sports. So that's a full show here on the Bleav in Steelers show, riding solo today. But just wanted to give you some thoughts following the draft. And again, to establish those expectations for Will Howard. We'll see as soon as we find out news about Aaron Rodgers. Is he signing with the Steelers? Is he retiring? I'll pop on here on the show to share my thoughts and my reaction. I still think he winds up in Pittsburgh, but is it lingers on and on and on and on? I think it starts the chances of him joining the Steelers dwindles as more and more time goes on because the team needs to get through OTAs, develop a rapport, start to put some things in, learn your teammates, learn what they like to do. The longer this lingers on, I think the less it is that Rodgers joins the Steelers, but we still don't have a decision at the time of this recording on Cinco de Mayo, May the 5th, 2025. My name is Mark Bergin. This has been another edition of the Bleav in Steelers show. If you enjoyed listening to Bleav in Steelers, do me a favor, leave a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. And on YouTube, if you haven't already, I don't know what you're doing, but hit that subscribe button on the Mark Bergin YouTube page. Again, my name is Mark Bergin. This has been another edition of the Bleav in Steelers show. I'll see you next time. Until then, take care. So long, everybody.